Okay, we're going to get started. Can you all hear me? You hear me at the back? Perfect. My name is Cheryl Bidgood. I'm Dawn's daughter-in-law, married to Peter, and I have two sons, Spencer Bidgood and Matthew Bidgood. So I'm just going to give you the rundown on the room. We have two exits out into the hallway. These are your fire emergency exits. There's also one here, door to the outside. In that room, there's also a door to the outside. Okay, those are your exits. The washrooms are out this door and turn right, and they're on the right-hand side. Pass them coming in. For masks, as long as you are sitting down, you don't have to have your mask on. If you're up getting snacks or talking to people, you do. And there's a smoking area if you want to have a smoke outside this door. You probably want your coat, it's kind of cold. And I'm going to turn it over to Peter, and thanks for coming.
All right, so as Cheryl said, thank you so much to everybody for coming. Very much appreciate you being here to remember my father. Some quick comments about the presentation that we're going to be doing. My father was not a religious man, and this celebration is going to reflect that. He wanted to provide an opportunity for family and friends to get together and reconnect, and perhaps have a smile about his life and a little bit of a reminiscence. So what we'll be doing is I'll be speaking, as well as some other people, about my father's life from beginning to end. We'll try and keep it short, given my father's life. It's a bit of a challenge. If you need to leave at any point, please feel free. There's no insult taken. We very much appreciate everybody being here. And hopefully during this, you'll maybe learn a little bit about my father you didn't know, and have a chance to connect with some friends and relatives that you either haven't had a chance to see recently, or perhaps a meeting for the first time. So, oops, well, I've already messed things up. Well, that's just let's try that again. Under no circumstances, panic. So, as I said, my father wasn't a religious man. If you are, and you wish to send a prayer his way, I'm sure he wouldn't object. Joanne has asked that the Rogers hymn be played. I did a Google search and couldn't find the Rogers hymn, but was subsequently informed that it is in the garden. So a further search, I was able to find a recording that was done in the, I'll find out where it was, the Hereford Cathedral. This is it. I suspect my father may have actually visited that. garden. Joanne, thank you for that. Piece of music I think my father would have approved of. So let's go back in time a little bit. My father was born in London, May 24th, 1932. This is a picture of him probably in Worthing on the south coast of London with his mother, Minnie Bidgood. Minnie Bidgood, who hated to be called Minnie and preferred to be called Biddy, and his father, Ralph. Ralph was to pass away fairly early in my father's life, so my father was raised by Biddy and a plethora of other aunts, both real and honorary aunts, who made sure that he grew up properly. Whether they succeeded or not is up to your determination. As part of, as he grew older, as part of the mandatory military training that was required in the UK in the 1950s, he joined the RAF. This caused him to be transferred over to Canada to do his flight training. And here you actually see him getting awarded his wings by one of the Canadian Air officers. Notice the stylish haircut on my father. He's also wearing a bandage on his hand, because if I remember rightly, he managed to gash his hand working on a piece of equipment. So the grimace may either be about how tightly is my hand about to be gripped. He ended up flying the Gloucester Meteor, which was one of the first jet aircraft that was produced in the world, actually. This was not for the faint of heart. As I said, first jet aircraft. These particular aircraft held the world speed record at various times during the 1950s. They didn't have ejection seats, the cockpit was small, and getting out of them was a challenge. Obviously my father survived, but he was able to, among other things, take this particular picture while flying, and I think says something to his abilities. Certainly I wouldn't want to be taking a picture flying that close. Whoops, and touchy. There we go. After doing his flight training, my father re-embarked on an academic career and started at Cambridge. The proper young student, formally addressed, of course. He studied geophysics and particularly geomagnetism, which is around the formation of magnetic fields in rocks as the rocks are being created. This apparently required him to spend a lot of time in a wooden hut in a cabbage field outside of Cambridge to avoid any stray magnetic or electrical fields. I don't know whether the particular piece of his work that he was doing there was exciting, but the results ended up being part of the research that was done to validate the idea of continental drift, the idea that the continents are moving, which at the time was very revolutionary and was definitely up for debate. However, he's successfully graduated with the PhD in geophysics, and as you can see, a major in beard growth. A talent which he maintained through most of his life. After graduating, he went on and taught at the University of Cardiff, and because of where the material for his research was located, he ended up doing extended trips to places like Spitsbergen and Greenland. However, he didn't spend all of his time looking at rocks. He discovered this young lady. This is my mother, Frida Milton, who at this point was a young maternity nurse and in training as a midwife in the UK. Apparently it was love at first sight, at least for my father, for my mother. My mother was apparently somewhat less impressed. However, she came around. We have photographic evidence. My mother was a midwife in some of the rougher parts of London, and one of the things that my father passed on is that despite the rough nature of the neighborhood, those people living in that environment very much appreciated that midwives were coming in and providing their services, and never was there any trouble given to any of the midwives. I think my father operated under the same principle with my mother. You appreciated her and you didn't give her trouble. She did, however, manage to come up with me. This is an early picture of me with Don and Frida. Fortunately, as I said, my mother had maternity training because when I was born, my father was on the east coast of Greenland, completely out of communication, no phones, no radio, no nothing, and was quite frankly of no assistance at all in the process. He learned of my birth when the supply ship eventually came into where the team was camped, with the captain yelling across the water as they approached, "It's a boy, it's a boy." What my mother thought of this whole arrangement, I can't comment. Sadly, my mother passed away in 1964, and after that, my father emigrated to Canada to start afresh. So at this point, I'd like to ask Matt and Spencer to come forward. And as representatives, as grandparents, of grandchildren of Dawn and Frida, I'd like them to light one of the candles. You're doing a good job as supervisor. Thank you, gentlemen. And move forward. Oh, I'm in the wrong place. Picture of my father with Spencer and Matt skiing at Wentworth. All right. So my father emigrated to Canada, settled in Nova Scotia, and met Dorothy Hanna. Apparently, appropriately enough, they were skiing at Wentworth and managed to fall off the T-bar ski lift going up the hill together. This apparently was an acceptable way to meet people, and they subsequently got married. Times have changed, obviously. Prior to that, my mother was taken on an inspection tour to the UK to meet the various aunts that I mentioned previously who had been responsible for raising my father. So this is a picture of Dorothy on the right, Dawn, of course, in the middle, myself lower down, and a couple of the honorary aunts, including my Aunt Dodo, next to Dorothy. They were a good bunch of people, and very much appreciate them. Shortly after my parents were married, I came over to Canada and lived with them. And then a new arrival appeared, Janet. As you can see here, she's apparently eating my father's finger, but she went on to more solid food. All I can say about this picture, the clothes, the hair, wow, just wow. Let's move on. A somewhat cleaned up version. Sadly, Dorothy passed away in 1995. So to recognize Dorothy and my father's relationship, I'd at this point like ask Chelsea to come forward and also light a candle. And Chelsea's also going to read a prayer, which was also read during Dorothy's funeral. If you're ready for that?
Sure.
Thank you.
Death is nothing at all. I have only slipped away into the next room. I am I, and you are you. Whatever we were to each other, that we still are. Call me by my old familiar name. Speak to me in the easy way which you always used. Put no difference into your tone. Wear no false air of solemnity or sorrow. Laugh as we always laughed, at the little jokes that we enjoyed together. Play, smile, think of me, pray for me. Let my name be forever the same as it always was. Let it be spoken without an effort, without the ghost of a shadow on it. Life means all that is ever meant. It is the same as it always was. There is absolutely unbroken continuity. I am but waiting for you, for an interval somewhere very near, just around the corner. All is well.
Thank you so much. That's a really- I jumped ahead and I didn't mean to. At this point, I'd like Crystal to come up. Crystal, if you would, and also speak a few words. Janet isn't able to be here today because of some health reasons, but she asked Crystal, who is a longtime family friend, to represent her. Crystal, if you care to come up, thank you so much. Now I'm going to record. All yours.
So this is from Janice, a farewell to Dad. I wish I could be here today to hear all the stories about Dad, but due to some health issues, I will be right where Dad knows I'll be, hanging out with his great-granddaughter and telling her stories of Grampy. I know that the day I was born, my father's carefully planned life got upended, and I'm sure I kept him slightly off keel for the rest of it. But he loved me. He used to read Winnie the Pooh and Paddington Bear stories to me, and every character had their own voice. He also helped name possibly 100 stuffed animals over about 15 years, and actually remembered their names. Dad taught me about trying your hardest, being kind, and being honest. He taught me about integrity. Dad also was a firm believer in the concept of getting back up when you fall down, only giving up on something when you had exhausted all available options. And I mean all of them. Glue, duct tape, some asbestos goop that he used to patch things even though it was asbestos. One of the best things I have had the chance to experience in my life was getting to watch Dad evolve to Grampy. He loved Chelsea from the moment he held her in his arms. Sorry. And it was a very mutual love. Grampy found kindred spirit in Chelsea. They loved plays, concerts, the theater, spending time together, and travel. Chelsea has Dad's love of travel, and he was more than happy to travel near with her in the early years and help her travel far on her own when he wasn't able to go with her. In the past decade, I was lucky enough to become friends with Dad. We talked about anything and everything. I got to know him as more than a parent, more than a grandparent. I just got to know him as a person. One thing I learned that really surprised me to find out was that Dad was the most competitive person I think I have ever met. Playing pool with him at Kinross was not for the faint of heart. He was a bit of a pool shark, and then there was chess. Watching him play chess with Kevin in absolute silence for hours, the tension palpable, made me really glad he had never succeeded in teaching me chess. There are so many more things I could say about Dad, but I figure if you're here celebrating his life with us, then you must have stories to tell as well. Please share them with each other and laugh and feel joy along with your sadness. Nothing would make Dad happier. Thank you.
Thank you. Well done. Thank you, Crystal, and thank you, Janet, as well. Very true words. After the passing of my mother, my father was on his own for a while. And then I met Joanne. Joanne is still with us. Joanne, thank you for being here. They were married in 2004. And as you can see, my father was very happy at that event. Joanne definitely added a little life to my father's existence. This was my father's 80th birthday. Joanne had, thank you. 75th birthday, the belly dancer being laid on by Joanne. I'm looking forward to having my 75th birthday. Joanne and Dawn were able to do some traveling together, and most certainly they shared a love of their grandson, Thiago. This is Thiago, the one without the beard. Brad, since Thiago is currently unavailable and doing time in school, if you would be kind enough to come up and light a candle on behalf of Joanne and Dawn. It's child-proof, so yeah, it's designed to only be used by children. Are you all right? Oh, well done. My father would approve. Very innovation. Well done. Thank you, Brad. Thiago is very fond of Granddad. Ride on Joanne's walkers along the halls in the apartment building where they lived was a highlight, I think, for both. So Don not only had 3 sets of family, he had far more than that. And so one of the groups he referred to was his Tai Chi family.
Oh, Lord.
Of course, unfortunately, my father fell in with a bad bunch. This is the cult known as the Bowlheads. I tell a lie. This is his Tai Chi group, and this is one of the exercises they did. Kem, who is one of the founders of the local Tai Chi group, isn't able to be here, but Kem dropped off a note and asked for that to be read. So I'd like to ask Cheryl to come forward and read that on her behalf.
Can you pass me my purse? I just gotta get my glasses out there. This is the 30-pound purse.
Is there any other kind?
No, it's true, right? Well, somebody said you need a little purse, you know, just to carry. So I have this stuffed inside my purse. I'm just going to read this verbatim. Oh, did I change pictures?
No, it's automatic, so you're good.
This is a letter written, Kim wrote it for to be read today. With deep regrets, we are in Toronto and not able to attend this celebration of life for Don. It truly saddens us to know Don would no longer be doing Tai Chi with us. For more than 20 years, he always practiced Tai Chi with us side by side. In April 2001, we gathered at Sullivan's Pond to do Tai Chi. Don was one of our founding members for the group. He often referred to us as his Tai Chi family. Our connection with Don through Tai Chi led us to being on a dragon boat team together that was on Lake Banook, and also traveling to China with other Tai Chi friends. He was a great teammate to us all. We will deeply miss his comradeship. He always warmed our hearts with his kindness and gentleness. He truly put his Tai Chi philosophy into daily practices. He is our Tai Chi kindred spirit. We will deeply miss his friendship. In our hearts, there is always a spot there for Don when we are doing Tai Chi. It gives us warmth to know his kind spirit is still practicing Tai Chi with us side by side. Love, Bill and Kim.
We're about slightly beyond where I was meant to be. Tai Chi was a big part of my father's life. Another part of his life was chess. Some of our representatives are here in honor of my father. Thank you, gentlemen. My father was very interested in having chess become part of people's lives, particularly younger students. He started the Dartmouth Junior Chess Club and ran it for 20 years. And he was actually recognized for this by the Dartmouth Library System and was nominated or was awarded the Volunteer of the Year recently. This is the presentation of that. In addition to chess, my father was also a lifelong blood donor and also heavily involved in the Boy Scouts movement, both as a scout himself, and he was also involved in helping run the various troops that I was engaged with. So he enjoyed giving back to his community. As Janet mentioned, a ferocious chess competitor, as you can probably tell from Matthew's expression. When my father came over to Canada, he was shortly engaged with the Nova Scotia Research Foundation Corporation, which was based in Dartmouth. Sadly, I haven't been able to find his pictures of this time, but I do have one or two. Certainly part of his work involved going into the Arctic and working up there for extended periods. Here he is modeling the latest in Arctic lingerie. As well as his outerwear, so he was well prepared when he headed out. And I think he enjoyed his time up there. A tough environment to work in, but incredibly beautiful at times. And the work that was done up there was something that he was very proud to be a part of. Closer to home, we had some noteworthy events. For those of you familiar with the Dartmouth Crossing area and the overpass that connects across to it, I remember that area from somewhat earlier when a small road was just beginning to be cut through that way. It was actually the site where my father was testing some of the geophysics equipment. This was to use sound to get pictures of the underlying bedrock, and to get that sound involved setting off explosives. So my father, in a previous era, was quite happily letting off large explosions of dynamite in an area which is now Dartmouth Crossing. Fortunately, the regulations were slightly different then as compared to now. Whoops, sorry, go back one. There we are. While my father was very proud of the work that was done by the Nova Scotia Research Foundation and some of the advances that were made there, I think one of the best moments he experienced there was later on in his career when he was, I believe, the head of the geophysics department, and he was asked to be the Santa for the annual get-together where the families of the Nova Scotia Research Foundation employees came together and brought their children in, and Santa appeared to give out gifts. Father was suitably dressed up with a little extra padding to achieve the appropriate profile, and the children were brought in, sat on his lap, received a gift. But the highlight for him was one young lady who received her gift, went off to her mother, and said, "Mom, that is the real Santa Claus. He has a real beard." That made my father's day, week, and I almost suspect career. My father had a love of music. His areas or favorites were the classics and jazz. As part of preparing for this presentation, I had the opportunity to look at his music archives. He used a little portable MP3 player for when he was listening to music. And out of curiosity, I started it up to find out what he'd been listening to recently. And on a little display, up came the Canadian brass. Makes sense, they're a brass ensemble, classical instruments. Hit the play button. Was not expecting to hear what I did. The Canadian brass covering the Beatles' Abbey Road album. My father still had a few surprises. He had his moments. I'm going to play a piece of music that was special to my father and a lot of the people in the family. This is a piece of Beethoven. It's short, don't worry, we're not going to play the full symphony, called Für Elise. Für Elise by Beethoven. So we're almost at the end of the presentation. I'd like to say thank you. First off, thank you to Richard and the team here at Atlantic Funeral Home for helping put this together. Thank you to everybody who contributed to this presentation and helped put it together, as well as this celebration as a whole. For those of you who didn't know my father, but are here to support family and friends, thank you so much for coming. For those of you that did know my father, thank you, both for being here and for being part of his life. My father did many things in his full life. He was a parent, a pilot, a philanthropist, a teacher, a craftsman, a coach, a scientist, and much more. Perhaps appropriately, I'll use Joanne's words to summarize. He done good. Thank you all so much for being here. We're going to restart the slide presentations, which will appear on both screens. There are a collection of slides and photos, some of which you've already seen here, some which are new, so please enjoy them. There's food. My father would hate to see that go to waste, so please take advantage of it. If you don't want it now, put it in your pockets and take it. I don't want to have it for breakfast. Please talk to each other, meet people, share the memories, because I know my father would appreciate that. Most of all, thank you again for being here.
And thank you, Peter.
Oh, thank you all. Take care.
Phone is on the floor.
And folks, if anybody has any questions, about my father, please, talk to me. Happy to have a conversation. Happy to meet everybody. Thank you for coming.